Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're being pushed, pulled, and shaped by forces you can't quite name, like someone else is writing your story, and you're just stuck reading the lines? Here's the truth. They can't control you if you master this your mind. Mastering your mind means reclaiming your power. It means understanding that your thoughts, emotions, and reactions are yours to govern, not anyone else's to manipulate. The world is full of noise. Media tells you what to fear. Society tells you what to want. People try to make you doubt yourself so you'll conform, comply, and consume. But when your mind is yours, truly yours, none of that sticks. Mastering your mind doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionless. It means becoming aware, aware of how you're influenced, aware of when fear is being used as a tool, aware of when you're being sold a lie dressed up as truth. Self-awareness is power. It's a simple phrase that holds massive weight, because in a world constantly trying to shape you, manipulate you, and define you, knowing yourself is your greatest defense. When you become truly self-aware, you're no longer a puppet reacting to the strings others pull. Instead, you're the one holding the strings, consciously choosing how to respond, how to live, and what you believe in. Self-awareness is the root of all personal power. But what is self-awareness, really? It's more than just knowing your favorite color or admitting that you get irritable when you're tired. True self-awareness means understanding your motivations, your habits, your fears, and your triggers. It means being able to step outside of yourself and observe your behavior without judgment, but with complete honesty. It's seeing how you show up in the world and why, and having the courage to confront what you discover. Think about this. Most people go through life on autopilot. They react without thinking. They get angry without knowing why. They chase success without defining what success even means to them. This lack of awareness makes them vulnerable. It makes them easy to influence, because if you don't know who you are, someone else will be happy to tell you who you should be. Governments, corporations, influencers, and even meaning loved ones can all take advantage of a person who lacks self-awareness. Why? Because when you're unsure of yourself, you look outward for direction. You buy what you're told to buy. You vote how you're told to vote. You believe what you're told to believe. But when you're self-aware, that external influence loses its grip. You begin to ask better questions, make better decisions, and walk your own path, no matter how noisy the world gets. Let's take emotions as an example. Without self-awareness, emotions control you. You get defensive in arguments without knowing why. You procrastinate without realizing it's rooted in fear, not laziness. You lash out, shut down, or overcompensate, and then justify it all. But with self-awareness, you learn to trace each emotional reaction to its source. You can say, I'm not actually angry, I'm afraid, or I'm not really tired, I'm overwhelmed. That's power, that's control, and it's not just about avoiding manipulation from others. It's about becoming more intentional in how you live. A self-aware person knows their strengths and their weaknesses. They know what environments drain them and what fuels them. They understand their own needs and are not ashamed to honor them. This internal clarity makes it nearly impossible for someone else to control them through guilt, shame, or social pressure. It also fosters accountability. When you're self-aware, you take responsibility for your choices. You stop blaming others for your unhappiness or failures, because you understand how your own decisions have shaped your reality. That doesn't mean blaming yourself. It means owning your part. And that level of ownership scares those who want to keep you small. Because someone who owns their life is someone who can change it. Self-awareness creates a kind of inner stability that is rare. It means you're not easily swayed by trends, manipulation, or emotion-driven movements. You become someone who listens deeply, speaks intentionally, and acts with clarity, that's incredibly difficult to influence and even harder to control. Now, this isn't something you master overnight. Developing self-awareness is an ongoing process. It requires reflection, discomfort, and radical honesty. You might have to face parts of yourself you've been avoiding. You'll have to slow down, get quiet, and ask hard questions. But what you gain in return is worth more than gold. It's your freedom. And once you begin this journey, you'll notice something. The noise of the world doesn't get quieter, but it does lose its power over you. People will still try to shape your thoughts, your identity, your behavior, but you'll see it for what it is, an attempt to influence someone who has already chosen to be their own authority, and that makes you dangerous in the best way. Because at the end of the day, self-awareness is not just a personal virtue. It's a revolutionary act. In a world designed to keep you distracted and dependent, knowing yourself is the most powerful rebellion there is. Emotional control equals independence. That might sound harsh at first, especially in a world that often tells us to feel everything and follow your heart. But emotions, while powerful and necessary, can become chains if we don't learn to manage them. The truth is, those who can provoke your emotions can steer your decisions. And if someone else is steering your decisions, how free are you really? Let's be clear. Emotions are not the enemy. They're messengers. They're signals that something is happening internally that needs attention. Anger might tell you a boundary has been crossed. Sadness might reveal a loss or unmet need. Fear might be pointing out a real or perceived danger. Emotions are vital to the human experience, but if you allow them to control your behavior, you are surrendering your power to forces that can be manipulated from the outside. Think about how easily people are triggered today by headlines, by tweets, by someone else's opinion. Entire systems are built around this. Clickbait media thrives on outrage, politics uses fear to drive division, and marketing plays on insecurity to push products. If your emotions are constantly leading your behavior, you're being controlled, and most of the time you don't even realize it. You're reacting, not choosing, and that distinction makes all the difference between being free and being led. Now, emotional control doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. That's repression, and it's dangerous. Real emotional control is about acknowledgement, understanding, and conscious direction. It's being able to feel the wave of anger, but choosing not to lash out. It's noticing fear rise in your chest, but still stepping forward. It's understanding that sadness isn't weakness. It's just a moment asking for stillness. This kind of control is not about rigidity, but about grounded presence. When you have emotional control, you don't make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. You pause, you think, you breathe, and from that space, you act with intention instead of impulse. That pause is where freedom lies, because in that space, no one owns you. Not your past, not your pain, not the people trying to manipulate you. You're in command, you're leading yourself. This control becomes your superpower in conflict. In a world where people are quick to argue, quick to insult, quick to cancel, being the calm one is a form of dominance. Not arrogance, not superiority, but inner mastery. When you don't take the bait, when you don't react just because someone else wants you to, you become untouchable. People don't know how to deal with someone they can't provoke. That frustrates manipulators, bullies, and emotional vampires. It protects you. Moreover, emotional control builds trust. Others can sense it when you're in control of your emotions. They see it in how you handle stress, how you deal with setbacks, and how you treat people who disagree with you. That control builds respect. It shows leadership. It shows maturity. And perhaps most importantly, it gives you peace, because you're not a prisoner to whatever storm passes through your heart that day. You also stop being addicted to drama. Many people, without realizing it, are hooked on emotional highs and lows. They chase toxic relationships, start arguments, or immerse themselves in chaos because they don't know how to feel grounded without it. Emotional control breaks that addiction. You learn to sit in silence without needing a crisis. You learn to create instead of react. You become addicted to clarity, not chaos. Another key benefit: you stop giving your power away to others. If someone can make you angry with a few words, they own you in that moment. If someone's opinion ruins your whole day, they've taken control of your inner world. But when you cultivate emotional control, those same words lose their grip. That person no longer has a hold on you. You're still aware, still human, but you're no longer a puppet of your feelings or someone else's agenda. This also allows you to respond with empathy rather than ego. When you're not consumed by your own emotional reactions, you can see other people more clearly. You recognize that someone else's anger isn't about you. Their rudeness isn't a reflection of your worth. Emotional control opens up space for compassion. Even when others are messy, you remain centered, and your presence becomes medicine to people who have never known stability. And over time, emotional control begins to shape your reality. The decisions you make are clearer. The relationships you choose are healthier. The goals you pursue are based on vision, not validation. Your energy is preserved. Your boundaries are respected. You begin to experience a kind of freedom most people never touch, because while they're still chasing emotional highs and avoiding emotional lows, you're walking steadily in your own truth. Question everything. It sounds like a rebellious slogan, but it's much more than that. It's a mindset, a tool, and a shield. In a world filled with half-truths, curated narratives, and invisible influences, the ability to question everything is essential for maintaining your autonomy. Those who never question are the easiest to lead, the easiest to deceive, and the easiest to control. From the moment we're born, we are fed ideas about what's good, what's bad, what's normal, what's possible. These ideas come from our families, schools, religions, media, governments, and cultures. And while some of these teachings are well-meaning, many are designed to mold you into something that fits an existing system, not something that questions or challenges it. The danger lies not in receiving information, but in never pausing to examine its source, purpose, or validity. Most people mistake obedience for wisdom. They believe that following the rules, agreeing with the majority, or trusting authority figures means they're doing the right thing. But history shows us time and again that the greatest atrocities, injustices, and manipulations were made possible not by evil people, but by compliant ones, by people who didn't ask why, by people who were taught not to question. Questioning is not disloyalty, it's responsibility. When you begin to question everything, you don't become cynical. You become conscious. You start to look at the world not just through your eyes, but through a sharpened lens. You begin to ask, who benefits from this idea? What's the source of this message? Why am I being told this, and by whom? You begin to notice patterns. You start spotting manipulation where others only see tradition or authority. You stop blindly accepting, and you start actively discerning. Questioning leads you back to yourself. Instead of being defined by what others say, you start defining things for yourself. What does success mean to me? What does happiness look like for me? Is this belief something I truly believe, or was it planted in me before I ever had a chance to think? These questions strip away the layers of cultural programming and help you reconnect with your authentic values, your own moral compass, and your personal truth. People often fear questioning because it threatens their comfort. It's easier to follow a narrative than to confront uncertainty, but growth only happens when you're willing to step into that discomfort. When you start questioning, things fall apart. your old assumptions, your social circles, maybe even your sense of identity. But what rises in its place is real. It's not the you who was shaped by outside forces. It's the you that was always waiting underneath. This mindset applies to everything: politics, religion, education, relationships, and even your own thoughts. Just because something feels true doesn't mean it is. Feelings are not facts. Conditioning can feel like intuition. Your job is to investigate, challenge your assumptions, look at opposing viewpoints, not to agree with them, but to strengthen your understanding. Be curious, be relentless, be willing to be wrong. That's where wisdom begins. When you question everything, you don't just protect yourself. You elevate yourself. You become more aware of how systems work. You see the invisible structures of control, whether it's economic, psychological, or cultural, and once you see them, they lose their grip. You start building your beliefs, choices, and actions on a foundation you've examined and chosen, not one that was handed to you. There's power in asking why. That one-word question has toppled empires, ended dogmas, and sparked revolutions. It's the question every innovator, philosopher, and truth seeker has asked before changing the world. You don't have to become a revolutionary to use it, but you do have to be brave, because questioning will often make you stand alone. It will separate you from the crowd, but freedom is never found in the crowd. It's found in clarity. And let's be honest, questioning takes work. It's easier to scroll, to nod, to agree, to move on. But every time you question, you sharpen your mind. You stop being reactive and start being reflective. You replace emotional reactions with thoughtful responses, and with each layer of untruth you peel away, you become more you, less a product of the world, more a force within it. So question everything, not because everything is wrong, but because nothing should be accepted blindly. When you question, you take back the right to think. When you think, you take back the right to choose. And when you choose from a place of awareness, you become someone that no system, no lie, no manipulator can easily control. Know your values. In a world that constantly tries to tell you what matters, what's worthy, and what's right, your values are your compass. Without them, you're like a ship without a rudder, easily swayed by the tides of public opinion, popular trends, or manipulative agendas. But when you know your values, deeply, consciously, and unapologetically, you create a foundation that no one can shake. Values are not just abstract ideas like honesty or loyalty. They are the deeply held beliefs that shape your priorities, guide your decisions, and influence how you treat others and yourself. They're the internal principles that help you determine what's worth your time, energy, and risk. When you don't know your values, you're at the mercy of someone else's, and make no mistake, someone is always trying to hand you theirs. The danger of not knowing your values is that you become reactive instead of proactive. You go with the flow, say yes when you should say no, and follow paths that were never meant for you. You find yourself pursuing careers, relationships, or goals that feel empty once you achieve them, because they were never aligned with who you truly are. You wake up one day wondering how you got so far off track. That's what happens when you let life set your values for you. But when you know your values, you begin to live with clarity and purpose. You no longer chase what everyone else is chasing. You pursue what you believe is meaningful. You stop worrying so much about impressing others, because you're more interested in honoring what matters to you. You might stand out, you might be misunderstood, but you'll be aligned, and alignment is worth more than approval. Values act as filters. Every choice you make, what to commit to, what to walk away from, what to speak up about, what to let go, and be run through the lens of your values. If freedom is one of your values, you'll recognize when a job, a person, or a belief system starts to become a cage. If integrity is a value, you'll feel the weight of compromise before anyone else even notices. These filters protect you. They keep you rooted. Knowing your values also makes you resilient. When challenges arise, when people criticize you, or when life gets hard, your values anchor you. You don't collapse because you're not standing on sand. You may bend, you may adapt, but you don't break. You know who you are. You know what matters, and that clarity becomes a source of quiet strength that no amount of chaos can steal. People who lack values often seek validation. They shift to fit in, afraid of rejection or conflict, but people who live their values, even when it costs them, become rare and powerful. They don't need a crowd to feel secure. They don't need applause to feel right. They stand on principle, not popularity, and that makes them ungovernable by trends, pressure, or propaganda. You can't borrow your values from someone else, not your parents, not your culture, not your heroes. You have to define them for yourself. That requires reflection, honesty, and sometimes even unlearning. You might realize that a belief you've clung to for years doesn't actually serve you, or that something you dismissed as unimportant is actually central to your sense of meaning. That kind of clarity takes effort, but it's the groundwork of true independence. Values also influence the company you keep. When you know what you stand for, you naturally start to attract people who align with those same standards, and distance yourself from those who don't. It's not about judgment, it's about direction. You can respect someone and still recognize that their path isn't compatible with yours, and having the clarity and courage to walk away when things no longer align is one of the strongest acts of self-respect you can make. There's another benefit, too. Decision-making becomes easier. Life is full of complex choices, but when you filter your decisions through your values, you eliminate a lot of noise. You stop asking, "What will people think?" and start asking, "Does this align with what I believe?" That shift takes you from confusion to clarity, from conflict to peace, from dependency to power. So if you want to be free, truly free, don't just chase goals. Define your values. Let them become your internal law. Let them guide your words, your work, your relationships, your reactions. Because when your values are clear and your actions align with them, no one, not a boss, not a government, not even a crowd, can control who you are or where you're going. Don't outsource your thinking. In a world where opinions are broadcast louder and faster than ever before, it's tempting to let others do the thinking for you. It's easier, it feels safer, but that convenience comes at a steep price, your independence. When you allow someone else, whether it's the media, influencers, politicians, or even friends and family, to tell you what to think, you've handed over the most powerful part of your identity, your mind. The truth is, the systems around you are not designed to make you think. They're designed to make you conform. From childhood, you're rewarded for giving the right answers, not for asking the right questions. You're trained to memorize, repeat, and obey, not to challenge, analyze, or innovate. Schools, social media, and even corporate environments often discourage original thought in favor of consensus and predictability. But if you're always being told what to think, how can you ever know what you truly believe? Outsourcing your thinking makes you easy to manipulate. When you blindly adopt someone else's perspective without examining it, you're giving them the power to shape your worldview. You might not even realize it's happening. You scroll, you nod, you share a quote that sounds good, but you haven't thought about the idea beneath it. You're consuming without questioning, and consumption without discernment is mental slavery. This doesn't mean you ignore what others have to say. Quite the opposite. You can listen, read, and explore various opinions, but the key is reflection. You have to process the information. You have to weigh it against evidence, experience, and your own inner truth. You must ask, is this true for me? Not, is this popular? Real thinking is slow. It's uncomfortable. It requires effort. But without it, you are simply echoing what someone else has programmed into you. One of the subtle dangers of outsourcing your thinking is that it feels good. There's comfort in certainty, especially when it's handed to you by someone confident, charismatic, or credentialed. It relieves you of responsibility. But thinking for yourself isn't about comfort, it's about consciousness. It's about resisting the urge to absorb and repeat, and choosing instead to investigate and interpret. That takes courage, that takes discipline. You'll know you're thinking for yourself when your opinions are not always convenient, when they sometimes go against your community, your tribe, or your political identity. Independent thought is messy. It's not always easy to categorize. You might find that you agree with people you were taught to dislike, or disagree with people you once idolized. That's how you know your thoughts are becoming your own, not just recycled slogans. The danger of mass media and algorithm-driven content is that it feeds you what you already agree with. It creates echo chambers that feel like reality, when in fact they're carefully curated illusions. If you never break out of that loop, you'll mistake repetition for truth. But thinking for yourself requires exposure to discomfort, to opposing views, unfamiliar data, and different worldviews, not to accept them blindly, but to examine them honestly. Don't let your identity become a collection of second-hand thoughts. Don't wear labels you haven't defined. Don't fight battles you haven't chosen. The more you outsource your thinking, the less you own your voice. You become a puppet whose strings are pulled by trends, ideologies, or charismatic personalities. And the most dangerous part, you often won't even realize you're being used. Thinking for yourself also demands that you admit when you're wrong. If you're truly reasoning independently, you'll often come to conclusions that evolve. You'll grow. You'll shift. You'll shed old beliefs when they no longer hold up under scrutiny. That fluidity is a strength, not a weakness. It shows that you're loyal to truth, not ego. People who can't admit they're wrong are often not thinking at all. They're just protecting the programming they've mistaken for identity. Owning your mind means you give yourself permission to explore. You read broadly. You question deeply. You allow yourself to say, I don't know. Without shame, and I've changed my mind, without fear, you learn how to think, not just what to think. That kind of mental sovereignty is rare because it can't be bought, borrowed, or imposed. It has to be cultivated through silence, study, and self-honesty. And when you stop outsourcing your thinking, you stop being predictable. You become harder to influence, harder to fool, and harder to control. You start to form ideas that are original, nuanced, and grounded in lived experience, not in the loudest voices or the most viral headlines. Your thoughts become weapons, not wounds, and your mind becomes a fortress, not a sponge. Embrace discomfort. In a culture obsessed with ease, convenience, and instant gratification, the idea of embracing discomfort seems backward. But the truth is, comfort is a seductive trap. It feels good in the moment, but it often keeps you stuck. The most transformative growth, the deepest clarity, and the strongest resilience are all born in moments of discomfort. If you avoid it, you avoid becoming your full self. Comfort zones are like padded cells. They're soft, warm, and familiar, but they quietly imprison you. When you prioritize comfort above all else, you stop taking risks, you stop speaking your truth, you stop challenging yourself, you choose predictability over possibility. Discomfort, on the other hand, forces you into unfamiliar territory where learning, growth, and authenticity lie. The price of freedom is discomfort. Every meaningful change in life starts with discomfort. Think about it. Whether it's starting a new business, ending a toxic relationship, speaking on a stage, or confronting your own flaws, the first step is never comfortable. It's awkward, it's scary, it's uncertain, but that's where power lies. Discomfort is the doorway. The people who walk through it become unshakable. The ones who avoid it stay trapped, even if the cage is gold-plated. Discomfort exposes what you've been avoiding. It brings to light the stories you've told yourself, the fears you've buried, and the insecurities you've refused to face. It strips away the illusions. It shows you where you're still shackled to fear, where your growth has stalled, and where your potential has been quietly wasting away. That exposure hurts, but it heals. It's pain with purpose. Most people confuse discomfort with danger. They assume that if something feels uncomfortable, it must be wrong. But discomfort isn't a red light. It's a signal. It's the tension that precedes a breakthrough. It's the pressure that precedes expansion. The gym hurts before it strengthens you. The truth stings before it sets you free. Courage isn't the absence of discomfort. It's the willingness to move through it anyway. The problem is that we've been conditioned to equate happiness with ease. We chase a life where nothing is hard, nothing is uncertain, and nothing challenges us. But such a life is sterile. It may be safe, but it's not satisfying. Growth requires friction. Character is forged in pressure. Wisdom is born from struggle. If you want the depth, the richness, the substance of a full life, you have to befriend discomfort. Look at the people you admire most, not the ones who are popular, but the ones who are powerful in spirit. The ones who have real integrity, real strength, real presence. They've all been through fire. They've all sat in discomfort, faced hard truths, made painful decisions, and kept going when it would have been easier to quit. Discomfort didn't destroy them. It refined them. It shaped them into people who can't be controlled by fear. Discomfort also keeps you honest. When you're willing to sit with the hard emotions, shame, grief, anger, uncertainty, you stop numbing yourself with distractions. You stop lying to yourself. You face your reality as it is, not as you wish it were. That kind of honesty is uncomfortable, yes, but it's also liberating. You can't heal what you won't feel. You can't overcome what you refuse to acknowledge. Even in your relationships, discomfort plays a role. Real connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is uncomfortable. Telling the truth, setting boundaries, admitting mistakes, none of that is easy. But it's real. Shallow relationships are built on comfort. Deep ones are built on the courage to be uncomfortable together. The same applies to leadership, creativity, and purpose. They all demand that you lean into discomfort, not run from it. The systems that seek to control you want you to fear discomfort. They want you to stay silent rather than speak up, compliant rather than critical, numb rather than aware, because when you're addicted to comfort, you're easy to pacify. You're less likely to resist, rebel, or reimagine. But once you embrace discomfort, they lose that leverage. You become someone who can't be bought with ease or scared by struggle. So instead of asking, how do I avoid discomfort? Start asking, what is this discomfort trying to teach me? Let it be your compass. Let it show you where your soul is calling for expansion. Step toward the things that stretch you, scare you, challenge you, because comfort might feel like safety, but discomfort is where your evolution lives. Guard your attention. In today's world, your attention is one of the most valuable things you own. It's the gateway to your time, your energy, your thoughts, and ultimately your life. What you give your attention to grows, whether it's productive, toxic, empowering, or destructive. And yet, most people are hemorrhaging their attention every day without even realizing it. If you don't consciously guard it, someone else will gladly take it and use it for their own agenda. Every day you wake up into a battlefield. Your phone buzzes, your notifications light up, the algorithm begins to churn. Advertisers, platforms, media outlets, influencers, they're all fighting for one thing, your focus. Why? Because if they can capture your attention, they can shape your beliefs, your habits, and even your identity. Attention isn't just about where you look, it's about who gets to shape your internal world. Your mind is like a garden, and your attention is the water. Whatever you water grows. If you constantly water fear, outrage, gossip, or comparison, that's what will take root inside you. If you water discipline, truth, creativity, and peace, then those will grow stronger. But just like a real garden, your mental space needs protection. You need boundaries. You need to know when to say, "This doesn't deserve my attention." One of the biggest lies of modern life is that you can multitask. You can't. You can switch your attention rapidly between things, but every time you do, you lose focus, clarity, and depth. When you allow your attention to be fragmented all day long, you lose your ability to think deeply, to feel fully, and to connect meaningfully. And over time, you forget what it feels like to be fully present with one thing. The people and systems that want to control you understand this. That's why they design content to be addictive, headlines to be provocative, and platforms to keep you scrolling. They don't care if it's helping you. They don't care if it's true. They care if it's clickable. If they can hijack your attention, they can feed you whatever narrative, product, or ideology they choose. They don't need to imprison your body. They just need to colonize your mind. Guarding your attention means becoming radically intentional about where your eyes go, what you listen to, what you consume, and who gets access to your mental space. It means turning off what doesn't serve you, even if it's popular. It means logging off sometimes, even if it feels uncomfortable. It means remembering that silence and boredom aren't problems. They're often the spaces where your real thoughts begin to emerge. It's not just the loud, toxic things that steal your attention. Sometimes it's the endless stream of minor distractions, the scrolling, the refreshing, the background noise, that erodes your focus like slow, moving acid. It doesn't feel like much at the time, but after weeks, months, and years of this erosion, you'll find yourself drained, unfocused, and anxious, and you won't even know why. Attention theft is often subtle, but its consequences are deep. Guarding your attention also means curating your environment. What books are within reach? What apps are on your phone? What kind of conversations do you allow in your space? Every one of these choices either protects your focus or leaks it. If you constantly surround yourself with chaos, noise, and negativity, your attention will naturally gravitate toward those frequencies. But when you create a space that's designed for clarity, calm, and focus, your mind can finally breathe. One of the most powerful practices you can develop is the ability to redirect your attention deliberately. When a negative thought tries to take over, you don't have to fight it, but you also don't have to feed it. When someone tries to bait you into drama, you don't have to respond. You can say, "This doesn't deserve my focus." That's not avoidance, that's mastery. That's choosing where your power goes. Your attention is finite. Every hour spent feeding distractions is an hour stolen from your dreams. Every minute spent locked in outrage or comparison is a minute you could have used to create, to rest, or to connect. You can't get that time back. And the people who control your attention know this. That's why the path to freedom begins with reclaiming your awareness. Because when you decide, truly decide, that you will no longer let your focus be stolen, you take back control over your direction. And as your attention sharpens, so does your life. You start to see through the noise. You start to feel present again. You reconnect with what actually matters to you, not just what's trending or loud. Your decisions become clearer. Your relationships grow deeper. Your creativity returns, all because you made one crucial shift. You chose to guard your attention like the treasure it is. Set clear boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define where you end and others begin. They protect your time, energy, emotions, and values. Without them, you become a sponge for other people's demands, expectations, and negativity. You lose control over your life because you haven't clearly communicated what is acceptable and what isn't. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for your freedom. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear conflict or rejection. They worry that saying no will make others angry or disappointed. But the truth is, boundaries create respect. When you clearly express what you will and won't tolerate, you force others to see you as a whole person, not just an option or a resource. Boundaries are the foundation of healthy relationships, whether with friends, family, coworkers, or even strangers. Boundaries begin with self-awareness. You have to know what drains you, what energizes you, and what compromises your values. Without that knowledge, you'll set weak or inconsistent boundaries that others can easily ignore. When you're clear about your limits, you can communicate them firmly and kindly. This clarity makes it easier to stand your ground, even when pressured or challenged. Setting boundaries is a skill that requires practice. At first, it might feel uncomfortable or even guilty. You might second, guess yourself, or apologize excessively, but like any muscle, the more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. Over time, you'll find that boundaries actually reduce stress and improve your relationships, because everyone knows where they stand and what to expect from you. Boundaries aren't just about saying no, they're about saying yes to yourself. They protect your priorities and create space for what truly matters. When you guard your time and energy, you can invest them in your goals, passions, and well-being. Boundaries help you focus on what nourishes you instead of what depletes you. They're acts of self-respect that signal to the world that you value yourself. People who don't set boundaries often end up feeling resentful. They give too much, overextend themselves, and then feel taken advantage of. Resentment is a toxic energy that poisons relationships and clouds your mind. Boundaries are the antidote. They prevent burnout by making sure you're not constantly overcommitting or sacrificing your needs for others. Boundaries also protect you from manipulation and control. When you don't have clear lines, people can push, guilt, or pressure you into things you don't want to do. Abusers, toxic colleagues, and even well-meaning friends may exploit your lack of boundaries to serve their own interests. But when you stand firm, you become unpredictable and unmanageable, and that's a form of freedom few can take away. It's important to recognize that boundaries can be flexible but not negotiable. You can adapt them based on context, but you should never completely abandon them to please others. Flexibility means you're considerate and compassionate. Abandoning your boundaries means you're sacrificing yourself. Knowing the difference is key to maintaining your integrity while navigating social dynamics. Communication is critical when setting boundaries. People can't respect limits they don't understand. You don't have to be harsh or confrontational. Firm and calm is enough. Use I, statements like I need, I prefer, or I'm not comfortable with, to express your needs clearly. The more direct and consistent you are, the more likely others will respect your space. Finally, remember that boundaries aren't about building walls to isolate yourself. They're about creating gates that protect your peace. You decide who and what you let in. You decide how close others can come. Boundaries help you cultivate relationships that uplift and support you rather than drain or diminish you. They are a declaration that your time, your energy, and your soul are precious. When you set clear boundaries, you reclaim your freedom. You stop being a passive participant in your own life and become an active guardian of your well-being. You no longer let others dictate your mood, your schedule, or your values. Instead, you lead with intention and integrity. That kind of self-mastery is the ultimate form of control, because when you own your boundaries, no one else can control you. Cultivate self-awareness. Self-awareness is the foundation of personal freedom and true mastery over your life. Without it, you're like a ship sailing without a compass, reacting to storms, drifting with the currents, and constantly being pushed off course by external forces. When you develop self-awareness, you gain the ability to observe your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors with clarity, allowing you to make conscious choices rather than simply reacting on autopilot. At its core, self-awareness means understanding who you are, your strengths, weaknesses, desires, fears, and triggers. It requires honesty and courage because it often means facing parts of yourself you might prefer to ignore. But this inner work is essential because until you know yourself deeply, you'll be vulnerable to manipulation, conditioned responses, and unconscious habits that limit your growth and freedom. Self-awareness also means recognizing the difference between your true self and the masks or roles you play to fit in or gain approval. Many people live their lives performing for others, trying to be what society, family, or peers expect. This creates internal conflict and leaves you disconnected from your authentic voice. Cultivating self-awareness helps you peel back those layers and reconnect with your core identity. One powerful aspect of self-awareness is emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize and understand your emotions as they arise. When you're aware of your feelings, you're better equipped to regulate them rather than be controlled by them. This emotional mastery is crucial in preventing others from manipulating you through guilt, fear, or shame. Instead, you respond with calmness and clarity. Developing self-awareness is not a one-time event but an ongoing practice. It often starts with simple habits like journaling, meditation, or mindful reflection. By regularly checking in with yourself, asking questions like, "Why do I feel this way?" or "What triggered this reaction?" you build a habit of observation that strengthens your inner knowing and resilience. Self-awareness also involves understanding your values and what truly matters to you. When you're clear about your principles, you can make decisions aligned with your authentic self instead of following external pressures. This alignment brings a sense of peace and purpose that no one else can dictate or take away. Another benefit of cultivating self-awareness is that it reveals patterns, especially unhealthy ones. Maybe you notice you often seek approval or avoid conflict. Or perhaps you see recurring thoughts that keep you stuck in fear or doubt. Awareness allows you to interrupt these patterns and choose new, empowering ways of being, breaking free from cycles of control. Self-awareness deepens your relationships as well. When you understand yourself, you communicate more honestly and set healthier boundaries. You become less reactive and more empathetic, which improves how you connect with others. This clarity helps you discern who supports your growth and who drains your energy, giving you more control over your social environment. In a world full of noise and distraction, cultivating self-awareness is a radical act. It requires slowing down, turning inward, and resisting the urge to escape discomfort with busyness or avoidance. This inner work may feel lonely at times, but it's the path to true empowerment because it roots you in your own truth rather than external validation. Ultimately, when you cultivate self-awareness, you step into the driver's seat of your life. You move from being a passive reactor to an active creator. You learn to respond rather than react, to choose rather than comply, and to lead rather than follow. This internal mastery is the key that unlocks your freedom, because no one can control you when you fully know and own yourself. In mastering these principles, embracing discomfort, guarding your attention, setting clear boundaries, and cultivating self-awareness, you reclaim your power in a world that constantly seeks to control you. Freedom is not something granted from the outside, it is forged within. It is a daily practice of choosing yourself, your truth, and your values over fear, distraction, and manipulation. Remember, no one can control you if you master these inner skills. You become unshakable because your strength comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and how to protect your mind and heart. This mastery isn't about perfection. It's about commitment. Commitment to your growth, your peace, and your freedom. So take these keys and unlock the door to your own sovereignty. Stand tall in your boundaries, embrace the challenges that make you grow, protect your focus fiercely, and look inward with honesty and compassion. When you do, you will live a life on your own terms, free, powerful, and truly unstoppable.